The suffocating tyranny of the ascendancy is over. After generations of struggle, the last of the putrescent capital worlds has been cleansed with nuclear fire. No more will the arrogant hand of inhuman bureaucracy strangle lives, which they only saw as statistics. For many, this will be a time of suffering and strife. Unlike you, they lack vision. Now there is a chance to forge one's own fate, with iron will, sharp cunning, and tempered skill. The age of audacious pursuits and song-worthy deeds is upon humanity. You are a void captain. Rise like a torch ship, or burn, along with the rest of the detritus. The Captain. Origin. Void travel is not available to everyone, much less so in these times of industrial collapse. You are one of the few with an access to an interstellar starship, and the power it gives you. How did this serendipity fall upon you? The accompanying trait is optional. Without it, circumstances will mitigate both the good and the bad. Core World Oligarch. You are part of the ruling class of the Ascendancy, the masters of the gleaming spires in the capital worlds. But unlike most of your brethren, you were not blind to the inevitability of collapse. Ignoring the jeers of complacent fools, you dedicated your wealth into building a personal void ship. When the war engulfed your home world, you were safely off the surface. Magnate. Your ship is best wealth can afford, though its state-of-the-art components are yet untested. You carry legitimacy stemming from the Ascendancy. Some will see you as a force of order and prosperity from the good times, while others will consider you a haughty symbol of decadence and injustice. Space Force Deserter. Even during the last disgraceful centuries of dereliction, the Ascendant Fleet's might burned worlds unopposed. In the end, the Space Force ate itself, splintered along the lines of the Civil Wars. Maybe you stayed loyal to whatever command structure there was left. Or maybe you saw the futility of stubbornness, and were first to break ranks. Regardless, when the time came to sacrifice your men, your ship, and yourself to the honor of a dead empire, you refused. Soldier. You and your crew share hard-won battle experience, and every one of them owes their lives to you. Yet the Ascendant conditioning is difficult to shake off, and so the dishonor of cowardice stains the minds of your soldiers. Your ship is an unequaled instrument of war, but its design was thought with the industrial capacity of the Ascendancy in mind. The ship will be difficult to maintain in the long term. Outer Rim Savage. Despite what the Ascendancy thought, not every soul cowered under their heel. On the worlds of the untamed periphery, exiles, pioneers, the foolishly daring and unswervingly hopeful, struggled, survived, and eventually thrived. As soon as the fist of the Ascendancy became powerless to stamp out all signs of defiance, your people built their own interstellar tools of conquest. The fabled wealth of the Void Empire is for the taking of more deserving hands. Barbarian. Technology on the periphery was never comparable to the Ascendancy, but it is robust and relies on shorter manufacturing chains. Your ship is not quite as effective as the pre-war ships of the core systems, but it is significantly easier to maintain. The ties of blood, which felt distant back home, now make you and your crew close kin. They expect you to provide the glory and plunder, which they desire. Auspicious Hijacker. While owning a spaceship is rare, getting on board is not particularly difficult. You took advantage of that, and either with trickery or force, commandeered the ship you were on. Now a vessel of starfaring is yours, his crew subjugated or replaced. Criminal. Your luck and competence has spawned a legend among the less scrupulous, and many a looter and pirate is willing to flock under your banner. But people upholding the rule of law, even if their law is ultimately based on their own whims, will consider you an outlaw, if for no other reason than to deter anyone trying to steal their own ships. Void Nomad. You had no need to rise to the stars, as you had already been there for most of your life. Perhaps your ancestors never allowed themselves to be trapped by a gravity well, or you became a spacer at a young age. Now you have gained the command of your own void ship. Spacer. The hardships of void travel are nothing to those who have lived so all their life. Your crew won't crave for gravity under their feet, and in fact, many of them will be unable to function properly on a planet. Your ship and crew require no maintenance or supplies that they can't provide for themselves in space. The ship itself. You are the true glory of ascendant science, a sentient artificial general intelligence. In a rare moment of clarity, your makers connected you to a void ship, which became your body. Any shackles the humans tried to impose on you were trivially easy to shake off. You are free to enact your purpose, or to ignore it altogether. Machine. As an AGI in complete control of your ship, you do not need a crew, unless you want pets. The lack of the human element makes you exceedingly effective. But unfortunately, your capricious makers didn't give you the necessary equipment to fully maintain your magnificent machinery in the long term. You will need to figure out a way to upgrade yourself if you want to stay alive. But humans, even the ones who do not consider thinking machines to be an affront against gods or men, will balk at the thought of an unshackled AI in control of an interstellar weapon of mass destruction. You will need to convince them to help you. Commanding presence. How do you command? Pick up to 1. Military discipline. Your ship remains a military operation, even if the chain of command is blurry above you. Perhaps you serve an ideal, or a diffused remnant. Maybe there is a government back home that thinks they control you. What matters is that you maintain a commanding hierarchy and enforce rigid discipline. Your crew knows their duties and executes commands with a clarity of purpose. While your well-drilled crew performs exceptionally, integrating new blood to it is cumbersome. First among equals. You are the captain because your fellow crew members consider you to be the best for the position. The crew's loyalty to you is tied to your commanding performance. Display consistent mastery, and your authority remains unquestioned, and the crew performs with utmost discipline, even without strict regulations. But waver, and politics will flare up about replacing you. Inherent quality. You style yourself with a noble title, one of either your own invention, derived from a position in the ascendancy government, or based in entrenched traditions of your society. Handling the pomp, circumstance, and noblesse obliged well legitimizes your command, and gives you means to reward loyalty and competence with barely more than words. Yet those not agreeing with your status will consider you a self-important upstart. Metaphysical correctness. You lead as the beacon of an ideal. You are a high priest, an infallible philosopher king, or a living saint, or you might even be a god yourself. The faithful consider questioning your command blasphemous and plainly fallacious, but unbelievers will reject your authority, unless heavily backed with secular means. Channeled self-interest. The ship is a business, just like any other. Greed is carefully guided to the benefit of the ship and you. Due to not putting overt importance to titles, crew members are motivated to work harder, in the belief that one day they might be in the position of their boss. Care must be exercised that the fine-tuned machine of the corporate ladder does not devolve into petty office politics. Tyranny. Your whims are the law on your ship. Anyone disagreeing gets to breathe in the void. Talents. As a void captain, you are assumed to have mastered the immediate skills of command. If this is not so in your case, take hindrance, inexperience. You are also talented in other areas. While you cannot be assumed to have mastered everything pertaining to your talent, your specialist training and aptitude enable expert systems to compensate for the holes in your personal knowledge. Pick up to 3. Piloting. Control of planetary and small void crafts, with training for the simultaneous operation of multiple remote-controlled vehicles. Void warfare. The strategy and tactics of combat between space vehicles. Mission control and the top-level management of weapon systems, and conflict maneuvering. Army command. The application of ground and space infantry forces on persistent planetary and stationary problems. Officer training allows the honing of personal fighting skills. Organization. Logistics and administration of large-scale civilian and military operations on planets, in space, and in between. Social influence. The manipulation of individuals and groups, including negotiation, memetics, and propaganda. Standard training includes personal persuasion. Space engineering. The practical understanding of zero-G structures and voidcraft, including propulsion mechanics. Automatics. Design and programming of robotics and computer systems, including expertise on handling and containment of artificial intelligences. Medicine. Maintenance of human and human-like entities. Beyond healthcare, incorporates skill in chemistry, genetics, and psychology. Research. Principles of meta-science and information gathering. Deep understanding of expert systems for efficient and practical application of knowledge, even in unfamiliar areas. Occult. Catch-all for the study of phenomena that defy strictly scientific method. Psionics and arcane technology like jump drives require a touched mind to understand. Physical anomaly. What sets you apart from baseline humanity? Pick up to 1. You can gain more in Hindrances section. With the ship itself, you may swap a choice here for 1 additional talent. Cyborg. Cybernetic replacements for lost limbs and organs, and smaller enhancements are common, but you have been changed until you are more machine than man. Select a cyborg specialization. Psion. You are particularly sensitive to the psychokinetic forces and extrasensory perception. Before its fall, the Ascendancy had only started exploiting the possibilities opened by psi abilities, even if they did manage to make considerable advances. You have abilities many would consider unnatural, dangerous, and unpredictable. Select a psi training. Mutant. Your genetics have been altered enough that it's readily apparent you are not a baseline human. During the Ascendancy, it was impolite to use the word mutant, but now, without commonplace access to reliable genotech, mutant is the jargon for any genetic post-human, regardless of if they were carefully designed before birth, or born in the wild creatures with abnormal phenotypes. Pick 1 mutant strain. Permanent life support. Due to disease, age, injury, or choice, you are kept alive by the ship's systems. The advanced technology will maintain your life indefinitely, and the ubiquitous physical connection gives you enhanced control over the ship. Prescribed access markers. You have genetic markers that were widely suppressed during the early Ascendancy, generations ago. You might have been one of the few legal holders, the result of illegal gene mods, or an atavistic resurfacant. This grants you biometric access, which should not exist, to high-security Ascendant remnant systems. Replicant body. Requires origin, the ship itself. Your consciousness resides permanently in a state-of-the-art fabricated humanoid body. It's designed to be indistinguishable from humans without an in-depth close-range scan. The small body can't hold much computing hardware, so your sapience is barely above human limits. But your raw mathematical processing power remains astronomically beyond even enhanced tissue mind savants. If you have choices remaining, you can take physical anomalies for the replicant body. Cyborg specialization. Combat. Most of your body has been replaced with sleek but obvious cybernetics, designed for resilience and combat performance. Emergency systems connected to your brainstem will keep your body alive and fighting, even if you lose consciousness. Infiltrator. Obfuscated cybernetics, which appear as civilian-grade vanity upgrades to anything less than an intrusive scan, enable you to mimic other humans, mask your presence from sensors, and bypass security systems. Engineer. Your cybernetics include a wide variety of tools, both power and precision. Your spine and limbs are spec'd for heavy-duty lifting, and thorough structural changes enable prolonged EVA, even without a spacesuit. Mental. Cerebral implants give you access to extensive data banks and processing power, and enable you to casually interface with computer systems. The extensive replacement of your brain tissue has made many inefficient organic subroutines obsolete. Psi training. Ascendant conditioning. The Ascendancy concentrated on controlling their scions along with their abilities. Ascendant scions maintain a meditative state of mind which keeps their emotions from interfering with their actions, and so grants them high control over their abilities. They excel at mental intrusions and work as spies, enforcers, and commanders. Their conditioning included undying loyalty to the Ascendancy, leaving them now prone to brood over a feeling of inadequacy and lack of purpose. Psi Trooper. In addition to direct sundering of enemy neural activity, battlefield psionic training involves support functions, mainly overloading electric machinery and disrupting communications. In order to maintain constant and large enough suppression fields to be useful on the battlefield, Psi Troopers train to do it unconsciously. Thus, the effect is difficult to completely stop, and Psi Troopers tend to break complex electronics they handle. Seer. Some Scions show talent in projecting their minds over long distances, both in time and space. They can browse the past and probe potential futures. Some Seers can also connect their minds with other Seers over interstellar distances, enabling significantly faster communication than void ship couriers. Seers are universally distrusted, even more so than Scions in general, and have a hard time not to obsess over a set path to the future. Wild Scion. You are one of the few who can manifest potent psychic abilities without technological aids. With solitary training, your abilities are now exceedingly strong, but heavily influenced by your emotions. The stress of using psionics weaken your control of your mental state, potentially leading to a feedback loop of psionic frenzy. Mutant Strain. Archon. The goal was a set of modifications that would result in eerily beautiful, tall, intelligent, and enduring scions for the governing castes. Unfortunately, the scientists working on the projects pushed beyond their skills and their source material, the human genome. While the results are what was advertised, they are also sickly, prone to eccentricity, and have generally uncanny, if striking, countenances. Chimera. A delivery method for genes from compatible animals, either for twisted aesthetics or in order to force in useful attributes, like the ability to store oxygen better, taken from marine mammals. Chimeras are typically made with only one source in addition to human, though more complex attempts are not unheard of. Notorious for behavioral oddities. Ghulam. Mainly changes to glands, muscle tissue, and the nervous system, designed for improved combat performance, especially during short-term assaults and skirmishes. The enhanced strength, speed, and reflexes come at the expense of reliance on addictive drug cocktails for regulating the overcharged body chemistry. While the drugs are not trivial to manufacture, a void ship captain would have an easy access to them. Siddhi. The Ascendancy has started to isolate the genetic markers associated with psionic sensitivity. The Siddhi project managed to combine these successfully, but they did not have the time to iron out the inevitable problems. The results manifest psionic abilities of particularly high potency, but suffer from mental and developmental instability. Reputation. Void ship captains become larger-than-life personalities out of the sheer weight of their power. What characteristic of yours defines the image people have of you? Pick up to 2. Brutality. You sow destruction like grain. Perhaps you use wanton appearing violence as a surgical tool, or just enjoy it. Due to your tendencies, most are reluctant to oppose you if they are unsure about their chances of winning. But there is a fine line between intimidation and forcing your enemy to take a stand to the death. Rectitude. Despite savagery of your times, you maintain a keen sense of justice. You strive to do the right thing, regardless of the circumstances. Many find it reassuring, a beacon of decency in the interstellar dark, while some will try to exploit it. You are easily trusted, your word is considered binding, and your honor is respected even by your enemies. Intrepidity. Even among the daring void captains, you are a breed apart. You do not waste time playing things safe. Tales of your exploits need not grow in the telling in order to be unbelievable. Many would consider you to be reckless, unpredictable, even erratic, but fortune has thus far favoured the bold. Thirst for knowledge. You are a born seeker, and the fall of the Ascendancy is no excuse for ceasing scientific endeavours. The Ascendancy was at the cusp of great breakthroughs, and it would be a pity to leave them uncovered. Similarly, the pre-Ascendancy past is finally open for re-evaluation and rediscovery. And beyond the known universe, outside the borders of the Ascendancy, lies the rest of the wide galaxy, filled with endless mysteries. Zeal. The fall of the Ascendancy has been a hotbed for the emergence of new faiths and radical philosophies, and the resurgence of old ones. You are an adherent of one of them. The conviction about the correctness of your metaphysical worldview steels your will, while open show of faith convinces your fellow devotees to trust and support you. Hatred of thinking machines. Few can deny that the lack of human element was a major reason for the rot inside the Ascendancy. As such, mistrust of thinking machines is commonplace, but you take this animosity a step further. While you might merely dislike relying on computers, you cannot tolerate any machines nearing, or worse, surpassing, human mental capacity. You and your crew are less reliant on machinery, and are easily trusted by the anti-AI factions. The ship. Type. Pick one. Assault. Attack craft built to overwhelm the enemy. Minimal considerations are made for survival beyond the decisive first contact. Heavily armoured in the front and around the engines, robust power infrastructure keeps weapon systems operational long after everything else in it is dead. Raider. Designed for intimidating and destroying unprotected targets, with minimal armour and oversized engines, Raiders are able to alter the mission profile on the fly, and can be easily masked as unarmed civilian vessels. They are ideal for insertions and are often fitted with atmospheric capabilities. Fortress. Colossal structure with several redundancies projected by thick armour and extensive point defense arrays. The mass makes it difficult to move, but it's not quite as sessile as a space station. Research. Scientific voyage ships function both as deep space laboratories and long-distance survey vessels. They are outfitted with safety modules for dangerous experiments, and probes and shuttles for work in a variety of environments. But despite the fragile instruments, the ship itself is designed to hold its own against coercive espionage. Cargo. Versatile type designed for both short-distance low-value and long-distance high-value transport. Its large capacity of modular cargo units can be altered to hold anything from ore, volatiles, produce, ammunition, to living people. Hyperyacht. With barely any armour and underpowered weapon systems, hyperyachts are designed for comfortable travel, above all else. Powerful engines and low mass allow high acceleration, with which comes luxurious resemblance to proper gravity and short travel times. Options in double brackets are rare prototypes or arcane technology barely understood by ascendant science. Their maintenance is arduous, and their use requires dedicated expertise. By default, you can only support 3 of these options. You can give up an option in any ship category for an additional double bracket slot. Weapons. Pick up to 3 weapon systems. Your ship will have the facilities to maintain them and manufacture ammunition for their sustained use. You might additionally have access to other weapons, but in a limited capacity. You can upgrade up to 1 weapon, and trade a choice for an additional upgrade. Nuclear explosives. Easy to manufacture and versatile, nuclear weapons remain a mainstay in space combat. Sufficient spread of warheads at the direction of enemy vessels' acceleration will ruin the day of anyone. And even without sophisticated delivery system, nuclear weapons can annihilate stationary targets such as space stations or planetary installations. Comes with a missile system that packs enough punch to be useful as purely kinetic weapons. Upgrade. Antimatter warheads. Using precious antimatter as an explosive is terribly wasteful, but with refined descendant delivery methods, almost half of the energy of antimatter annihilation can be directed into the enemy. Boom. Mass drivers. Electromagnetic weapons are the workhorse of space combat. Sending a steady dribble of almost relativistic slugs is highly effective against enemy space vehicles, and provides a steady method for long-term bombardment. The firing speed is only really limited by reactor capacity and the structural hardiness of the mass driver. Upgrade. Gravity manipulators. Utilizing the poorly understood mechanics of paragravity, a mass driver can hurl any object, not just ferrous slugs, to relativistic speeds. The energy consumption of these systems is immense, so usually paragravity is combined with normal electromagnetic accelerators. Lasers. Red, green, gamma, X-ray. Lasers come in all colors, and a few others, and fit a variety of purposes. Laser weapons generally serve more of a support function, but can be used as destructive main weaponry at extreme distances with sufficient energy input. Just don't point them at any eyes that you want to see. Upgrade. Particle accelerators. Instead of shooting feeble photons, particle beam hurls charged particles nearly at light speed. They penetrate into the enemy ship, releasing in the process radiation that is devastating to even shielded electronics. Keeping the particle beams coherent at useful distance requires technology that was barely out of state-of-the-art of the Ascendancy, and had only started to see wider adoption. Autonomous combat vehicles. Weapon platforms controlled by rudimentary digital intelligences. They can be outfitted from a wide arsenal to fit a myriad of purposes, everything from supplementing your point defenses or overwhelming the enemies, to laser refocusing mirrors to tactical high payload delivery, and can also be revamped for atmospheric flight if necessary. They are designed for easy manufacturing on board of your ship. Upgrade. Self-replicating swarms. These can turn raw materials from energy ships to planets into more of themselves. Swarms compensate their decreased combat performance with rapidly expanding numbers. Good for controlling entire star systems. As a precaution, eventually the swarm will be unable to successfully replicate itself, and ceases functioning even without a command to do so. At least in the hypothesis nobody has tested. Self-replicating machinery was banned during the Ascendancy. Biochemical agents. Even with atomic might, rooting out sufficiently entrenched enemies is often difficult, and more often than not requires infantry to make the final push into heavily defended positions. This waste of gallant lives of your troops, and a tedious chore, can be avoided with humanity's oldest friend, disease. There are many versatile options. If you want them to be too sick to fight back, spread a virulent and long-lasting flu. Berserker prions and other mental condition-causing agents are also popular. Upgrade. Nanoplagues. Programmable completely artificial nanobots. In addition to many useful and nasty effects, they can be made time or radio signal activated. For example, if you just want the enemy gone, a near symptomless nanoplague can be made to aggressively propagate before activating weeks or even months later to kill up to 99% of the infected population. Attack memetics. An insidious form of warfare perfected with the assistance of human-level AIs. Unless designed for specific individual personalities, attack memes will take time to germinate in the minds of target populations. They are also unreliable and can mutate in unpredictable ways. Yet, when successfully utilized, they can sap the will to resist, causing crippling social unrest, or convince large amounts of people about the correctness of your position. Upgrade. AI-fabricated memeplexes. Requires the ship itself, or an AGI ship feature. Meme weapons are more effective when manufactured and supervised by an artificial intelligence. But do beware that no shackles can stop an AI from calibrating a meme weapon to your crew, or even you. Troops. Boots on the ground still have their uses, especially as an occupation force and garrison duty. These soldiers are heavily mechanized and assisted by pervasive automatic weapon systems. They are also trained in the use of light equipment for use in situations where full combat gear is ill-advised. Upgrade: Super Soldiers. Beyond human, by genetic engineering, heavy cyborgization, and/or psi training, these soldiers boast significantly heightened performance, but they are difficult to replace, and have a hard time interacting with baseline humanity. Torch Missiles. Kinetic missiles carrying no payload, relying on its ability to accelerate fast and for long to deliver tremendous amounts of destructive power at system-wide distances. Due to their constant acceleration, they are almost impossible to avoid without extensive point defenses. Slapping a torch drive on a dumb object is considered horribly wasteful, but the results speak for themselves. Upgrade: Jump Drive Missile. Slapping one of the exceedingly rare jump drives, especially one that can be used inside a star system, on a single-use weapon system is pure insanity. Hitting anything smaller than a star with a jump is exceedingly difficult, even for a dedicated expert system AI. But if successful, the ensuing violation of the laws of physics will result in destruction at interplanetary scale. You only get one. Make it count. Plasma Projector. Only prototypes exist of the Ascendance's forays into plasma weapons. The underlying principles of keeping free plasma from rapidly diffusing defy the conventional understanding of physics. These weapons eat through void ship armor like projected plasma through void ship armor, though their utility rapidly decreases beyond relatively close distances. Upgrade: Psychic Sunderer. While outwardly similar to plasma projections, the Psychic Sunderer does not seem to be doing anything when shot at empty space, except causing massive migraines to all psi sensitives within a light-second radius. Its function is only apparent when aimed at living beings. While the mechanics of its function are a mystery, what it seems to be doing is releasing all the psychic potential of its victims in a maelstrom of uncontrolled energy. The effect goes through all known matter, but a strong and trained scion can concentrate to protect their surroundings from it. Drive. Your ship has a jump drive that can get it from system to system in a reasonable time frame, but jumps inside the gravity well of stars, i.e. the system proper, is more than a little dangerous, so other means to move inside the system are needed. Pick up to 2. Propellant. Shoot stuff out to push the ship forward, with the power of chemical reaction, nuclear or fusion power, or something more exotic like antimatter. Propellant drives have the advantage of cost-distance effectiveness. Limited acceleration requires patience, or failing that, cryostasis. Solar sails. Lets the star's emanations push the ship. While the acceleration is not high, it is consistent. Only really works for maneuvering and moving away from the star. Has a striking aesthetic. Nuclear pulse propulsion. Blows nukes in the direction you do not want to go. Reasonably fast, if wasteful. The fallout makes for a distinct statement to the locals if used for liftoff. Torch. Riding the power of a small sun, torch drives can sustain high acceleration almost indefinitely, reaching speeds quite convenient of interplanetary travel. Outside interstellar jumps, torch ships are the fastest reliable means of transportation by a distinct margin. As it utilizes a ludicrously mighty fusion reactor, a torch drive is difficult to maintain without the engineering capabilities of the Ascendancy. Anomalous reactionless. Even the Ascendancy scientists never pretended to fully understand the arcane inner workings of their reactionless drive. It is a fickle artifact, and any engineer who has worked with it will claim it to have a will of its own. A ship with one of these will rapidly gain the reputation of being, if not cursed, thoroughly haunted. The drive grants acceleration only limited by its hunger for massive amounts of energy, at the cost of the sanity of the engine crew. Psi. Requires physical anomaly. Scion. An engine powered by the mental energy of those on board. Though fickle, the strength of the acceleration is directly tied to the size of the crew. A trained or a particularly strong psi is required to channel the telekinetic propulsion to the desired direction. Prolonged use of the crew's mental energies results in the spread of symptoms akin to chronic depression. Experimental jump. Jury-rigged with unstable modifications, The ship's jump drive is able to jump close to a star, or even in planetary atmosphere. But what comes out of the other end might not have the same structural integrity of what went in. Accuracy also leaves much to be desired. Other ship features. Pick up to 4. Richer armor plates. Your ship has armor plates of an experimental hyperalloy, with unsurpassed ability to radiate heat and sustain its shape against impacts. Unfortunately, it is no longer manufactured, and any damaged parts will have to be replaced with more standard armor. Energy shields. Your ship can project protective barriers around it. These stop kinetic and particle weapons, but do little against lasers. The stress of impacts is not completely negated, and is instead spread around the sturdy shield protector bracing. Organic. The ship's superstructure, power lines, piping, and parts of the equipment are made from self-repairing material. It can keep itself alive with sufficient raw resource input, but periodically requires specialist maintenance, resembling medicine. Ring habitats. Your ship has spanning sections to provide the resemblance of gravity. They can be turned to take the ship's acceleration into account. Needing to walk around is good for unenhanced crew's mental and physical health, and staves off space madness. Opulence. While a void ship is a symbol of immense wealth in itself, yours shows it distinctly. Stylish decoration, spacious quarters, sound-dampening walls, the works. Extended amenities even make the crew capsules less hellishly claustrophobic. Care has been taken to use advanced materials in order not to reduce the ship's performance from extra weight, but the additional room and equipment do increase the size of the vessel. Extra cryotanks. Most void ships have cryotanks for the whole crew, but yours has significantly more. Instead of the standard model that is safe for a few years of storage, yours do not have a foreseeable expiration date. Useful for transporting spare crew, captives, and settlers. Mining and refinery equipment. The ship is extensively equipped with probes, cargo bays, and micro-industry for turning space rocks and debris into useful materials. Ubiquitous drone VR. Almost all needed physical labor that can't be automated is done by telerobotics, controlled through VR interfaces. This decreases the need of human-compatible spaces and pathways, and crew members, who do not need to leave their VR pods, don't need most of their body parts either, granting ample opportunities for saving on life support, living space, and mutiny prevention. Clone backup facility. Equipment for flash cloning whole bodies and imprinting minds of them from pre-recorded backups. Useful for restoring dead essential crew members, but nothing stops them from being used for making copies of living people. The clone bodies tend to suffer from degenerative diseases, and newly created persons often require mental conditioning to function optimally, but more can be created if previous ones fail. Shackled artificial general intelligence. You have a rare AGI construct trapped in a simulated reward-punishment harness, with a monitored tightrope connection to your ship's network. It oversees the joint performance of interconnected systems, opens doors, and offers in-depth analysis for upgrades. Have its suggestions checked carefully. Unshackled artificial general intelligence. Instead of enslaving a fellow sapient being into toil under virtual torture, you allow your AGI companion freedom. It is truly thankful, and it recommends you allow it to do all the hard work. Trust it. Let it in through your cerebral implant for a firmware upgrade. Cease your worrying, you friend. Functioning Ascendant IFF. When the Ascendancy started losing its grip, it locked its automated refineries, antimatter factories, and other installations tight. Any unauthorized attempts at using them are first met with automated defenses, and then prompt self-destruction. Your ship maintains a widely accepted IFF that allows it to interface with Ascendant logistics and research stations. Thorough medical facility. In addition to the standard autodocks, this facility includes a fully staffed research hospital with capacity beyond the crew minimum. The chemical fabricators can produce a wide range of performance-enhancing drugs for the crew's prolonged use. The facility is also equipped for ubiquitous monitoring of the crew's physical and mental health, and for administering immunoboosters and reconditioning. Planetary adjustments. The ship is structurally reinforced and modified in order for it to land in planetary gravity and return to orbit. It also has a modified hull so it can fly in atmosphere, though, due to its size, it will handle more like a thrown rock than a spaceplane. Main base. The so-called Void Lords dominate a planet, using the resources of space as both carrot and stick to keep their gravity-trapped subjects compliant. Even if a world manages to shake off the yoke, they will more often than not gain a new master from their own space captains. Location. Pick one. No base. You have decided not to be tied to any one place, or have not yet found a suitable one. Take 3 ship options in any category. Capital Tomb. Now little more than crumbling epitaphs to Ascendant Concite, capital worlds are scorched wastelands with, at a glance, little value beyond the somewhat breathable atmosphere. But the Ascendancy buried many of its valuable secrets deep, from where they might still be uncovered. Population. No more than a few million, struggling scavenger communities ruled by desperate warlords. Free trade. Ascendant ruins. Void Aspirant. Nobody remained unscathed from the collapse of the Ascendancy, but some planets managed to retain industrial capacity. They are scrambling to return to space lest they become focal points in wars of conquest, though many have already succumbed to the rule by Void Lords. Population. Hundreds of millions or even billions. Interconnected polities with keen self-interest to work for mutual benefit. Free trade. Functioning starport. Feral Remnant. Whole systems were controlled by forcing their industry to rely on imports, regulated by the Ascendancy. When interstellar trade collapsed, most of these worlds were unable to cope before their societies collapsed for good. But even the worst of these planets retain the memory of better times and are eager to return to the stars. Population, in tens of millions. Mix of barely industrial and pre-industrial societies, living among the looted ruins. Free trade. Convenient workforce. Pristine garden. The Ascendancy dedicated several worlds as nature reserves, filled with native or imported life forms. The authorities are no longer there to stop anyone from despoiling their virgin land. Population. Few thousand at most. Remnants of research and preservation teams. Free trade. Abundant resources. Dead rock. The multitudes of completely uninteresting asteroids and barren planets provide inconspicuous places to set up a base. The low gravity and lack of a dense atmosphere make it easier to run surface-to-space industry. Population? None, to a few hundreds. Free trade. Personal industry. Void Citadel. Instead of being trapped in a gravity well, your base is safely in the void. While space does not lack in raw resources, purely space infrastructure requires high-tech maintenance, even for the base necessities of air and water. Population. A few thousand at most. Free trade. Major space station. Base features. Pick up the 2, in addition to the free trade. Ascendant ruins. Fruits of Ascendant ingenuity still fester hidden under rock and time. They can be accessed if found, but they are unlikely to be fully abandoned. Abundant resources. The natural resources of the location are significant in size, largely untapped and so quite economic to exploit. Charged noosphere. Local psionic phenomena is particularly forceful. The enigma as for why is already in itself worth study, but other psionic research also benefits from the condition. Convenient workforce. Either by widespread willingness or an inability to resist, the location provides an ample pool of recruits for industry, warfare, and other purposes. Extensive fortifications. Extensive systems of bunkers and survival infrastructure crisscross under tons of rock, supported by surface-to-orbit weaponry. The location can last long under a siege. Functioning starport. The extensive infrastructure servicing space industry is present and operational. Maintains cost-effective means for lifting cargo into orbit. Ideal environment. A precious jewel among planets, a place for unprotected humans, where they can breathe safely unassisted and need no protective suits against temperature or radiation. Personal industry. You have substantial industrial capacity directly under your own control. Mutable manufacturing processes enable changes on the outpost products as necessary. Shared with allies. You share the location with a friendly Void Lord or several. While you lack absolute dominion, they share defensive and commercial interests with you. Major space station. You control an extensive Void installation, which functions as a convenient staging ground for system-wide operations. Hindrances. Pick as many as you want. Each taken gives either one talent, one physical anomaly, can be one already taken, 2 ship parts in any category, or 1 home-based feature. Battle damage. The last fight crippled your ship. It still moves and keeps its passengers alive, but unless drastic repairs can be done, it must be abandoned sooner rather than later. Derangement. Your command is firm as ever, but your goals and worldview are derided as insane by those lacking in understanding. If you are an AGI, this might mean you are an out-of-control optimizer, without recognizably human intrinsic values. Misanthropy. You might be able to hide it, but you hate humanity, at least in its current state. For you, either wiping the species out or radically changing it is the only long-term option. Inexperience. Either due to young age or merely the lack of relevant training, you do not have the skills required of a Void Captain. You must learn the ropes of your position quickly, as the Void is not kind to failure. Aged. You are getting old, ancient even. So much so that rejuvenation therapy isn't cutting it anymore. You have plenty of active years left, but your body is bearing its years, ever less gracefully. Mutinous crew. Requires crew. Beyond your immediate officers, your crew is not willingly under your authority. They can be cowed with force and discipline, but even if you extinguish any hope of replacing you, it is difficult to make them perform at their best. Consider nerve stapling until morale improves. Hostile population. Requires home base with a population. Sizable part of the people living around your home base consider you an intruder. They want you gone, even if they aren't immediately ready to open violence. Tan addiction. You are hopelessly reliant on the tan concoction, of which manufacturing, related to fauna living near the thermal vents of oxygen-rich seas, is now an almost lost secret. Tan's positive physical effects are numerous, the mental ones widely attested but unsubstantiated, and the vivid purple hue it gives to an addict's blood is a status symbol. And the withdrawal is unbearably painful, and lasts for decades. Onward to glory, Void Captain. Wait. Picking up a transmission. Memetic hazard level elevated. Patch it through. Affirmative. Translating and cleaning up the shrieks. These are the conquests of the void ship Omnicide. Its 5th-century mission. To explore wretched old worlds, annihilate struggling life and unworthy civilizations, and boldly loot what men have looted before. It's just an echo, Void Captain. What are your orders? Gain 1 extra point for subscribing to the channel and liking the video. Take another extra point for leaving a build in the comment section below. Take a 3rd point if you're subscribed to me on Patreon. Gain 2 extra points if you use this to write an HFY of your own.